Okay, I'm going to start the webinar and people
Yeah.
might start to pop in.
Mm-hmm.
The recording starts as soon as I start. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Recording in progress.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to start the webinar on Discord as well. Yes. Okay, people have started to join in. Hello,
Mm-hmm.
everyone. Can I just check for me if the chat is active? Just check here.
Yeah. Just give me a couple of
Yeah.
minutes.
Now it's active for everyone. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, cool.
I think, Anshu, we can start. Hello, good evening, everyone. This is Nikhil Aprajit, community lead at Lumos Labs. I welcome you all to the next workshop on how to build scalable solutions using the Tezos Network. Today, we have Anshu Jalan with us, who is the smart contract and a backend engineer at Tezos, and he'll be taking us through this incredible journey. Anshu, all over to you.
Yeah. Thank you. So, a very good evening to everyone present here. And for today's session, I will give you a quick introduction to Tezos, and we will also discuss what the bounty which Tezos is providing is all about and what you can build for this hackathon. And apart from that, I will also leave you with some resources using which you can get started with building your own decentralized application on Tezos. So yeah, let's delve right into the workshop. All of you who are present here, you might be having this one important question in your mind, and that is what exactly is Tezos? Because lately you might be seeing it in a lot of places, like Manu's jersey on a Red Bull racing car. But what exactly is this, and what is the hype all about? Well, for starters, Tezos is a blockchain that is based on POS or proof of stake consensus, and it has extensive smart contract support. Now you might ask, like, how is this different from so many other blockchains that are present around the world? Like there might be at least 6 blockchains in this hackathon itself that are based on POS consensus and also have smart contract support. Then why should you choose Tezos instead of them? Well, the most important point for that is Tezos can evolve. And a perfect example of evolving is what happened to Ethereum recently, how it changed its consensus protocol from a proof of work consensus to a proof of stake consensus. And as you know, it was really, really hard. The attempt has been going on for the past few years, and finally it became a reality. But on Tezos, we do that every 3 months because just how it is designed, evolution or upgradation is really easy. So on the screen, I have listed out 3 really important upgrades that we have had in the past year. First, we had the Hangzhou upgrade, then we had the Ithaca upgrade, and then we had the Jakarta upgrade. And below the names, I have the features that were introduced in the upgrades. The last 2 were really important because in Ithaca upgrade, we changed the consensus model from a Nakamoto style consensus to a Byzantine fault tolerant like consensus. And this is very similar to what happened with Ethereum, a change of consensus protocol. And then in the Jakarta upgrade, we introduced transactional rollups. And this was something called protocol level rollups. So on Ethereum, if you're already aware of the rollup environment on Ethereum, you would know that they are basically companies like Optimism and Arbitrum uh, who make their own rollup environment. But in the case of Tezos, it's built into the protocol itself. So we don't need a third party to come and give us a rollup environment. It's provided by the protocol itself. So long story short, evolution or upgrade validation is really easy on Tezos. And I think today is 23rd September, and today we will be having yet another upgrade, and it's called the Kathmandu upgrade. So yeah, Tezos is always in motion. So if evolution doesn't interest you that much, and you just want to focus on the development side of it, then this thing might definitely interest you. And that is on Tezos, we don't have low-level bytecode. Now, if you already have some experience with EVM chains like Ethereum or other EVM compatible chains, then you would know that the lowest level code on those chains is called the bytecode, the EVM bytecode. And this is the code that is eventually fed to the interpreters. And this is just a bunch of hexadecimal numbers, just gibberish. You can't really make anything out of it. But on Tezos, this low-level code is, we can't really call it low-level because it's completely human readable. You can even directly code in this, as you can see on your screen. It's called Michelson. Like this operation which you see on the screen, it's basically two numbers are being pushed onto the stack and then added. And you can also see that it is a typed language. We are actually mentioning that we are pushing integers onto the stack. So now you might wonder that what difference does it make for you? Because in the case of EVM chains, you code in Solidity or Viper, and then they get compiled down to bytecode and you just deploy it, right? So why should you be bothered about what the low-level code or the final code that is fed to the interpreter looks like? Well, you should be bothered because if you have something like Michelson, then you get a much better high-level language support. Because just the way Michelson is designed, you can basically take any existing generic language and you can design another language out of it in such a way that it compiles down to Michelson. That's why on Tezos, we have very extensive high-level language support. We can write contracts in Python, we can write contracts in JavaScript, and we can also write contracts in functional languages like OCaml and ReasonML. Apart from that, we can do some really fine-grained optimizations. And this is really important for all developers because in this case, like this is just gibberish. You can't really optimize this, right? But in here, you can definitely optimize how the operations are happening and what elements are being pushed onto the stack, right? So fine-grained optimizations directly on the low-level code, that is possible. And also in this case, when you write your code in Solidity or any other language, you are basically dependent on what they do. You don't really have control over what kind of bytecode they generate. But in here, you have control over the final thing that is being fed to the interpreter. So if you think that the Michelson is not properly generated or there is some optimization that can be done, yeah, go ahead and optimize the Michelson. This is something you definitely do once you get more experience, but yeah, it's something to keep in mind. And finally, verification of correct. Smart contracts correct, this is really immutable unless you have some kind of an upgradability structure. So in the case of Michelson, the design is called design. And that's why this in most of the cases, you just let it to some audit firm's permission and they do it for you. But it's something really important if you are designing a DeFi application or some financial application where correctness is really important because a lot of money is involved. So obviously you won't be writing code contracts directly in Michelson because, I mean, if you start writing contracts directly here, it would be like a huge file and not pretty manageable. So instead of that, we have high-level languages which compile can you build for this hackathon? So for this hackathon, we have proposed a very specific project bounty, and that is a platform to go long or short on Tezos based tokens. So it's a DeFi application that we have requested you to build. And it's definitely of some intermediate level because you must have some basic knowledge of DeFi before you can go ahead and make an application like this. And in here, you have two options. The first option is you can build something completely from scratch, a proof of concept from scratch, wherein you basically have a stable coin like USDT, which is deposited as collateral, and you receive a leveraged token. So in a leveraged token, basically, if you have something like 2x Bitcoin, then if the price of Bitcoin is going by $100 in the external world, then in this case, it will go up by $200. That's why it's 2x Bitcoin. So basically, if you have 2x Bitcoin, you can increase your exposure. You are going long on Bitcoin. And if you sell it, then yeah, you're going short on Bitcoin. So leverage tokens, that's what you can make from scratch if you intend to. And one great thing that we have on Tezos is the checker framework, using which you can create any synthetic asset. But in here, we have asked you to build a leverage token. So you can build that using checker. Now, checker is basically a framework which will deliver you the smart contracts. So basically, you set the parameters and you deploy your own system. And then what you have in hand is to build a final UI to interact with the smart contracts. So if you're looking to build something from scratch, then I would say do look into checker. This is a really good framework, and within minutes you will have the smart contracts, and you just need to get a UI up and running. So that was the first option. And if you want to use existing systems, I think this was what was mentioned in the brief on the bounty, but I guess you can even build from scratch. You don't really have to use existing systems if you don't want to. But yeah, this is definitely the easy route. So if you are coming from Ethereum, you already have some DeFi experience, then you must have heard of MakerDAO. MakerDAO is a system that issues stable coins, and you may know how you can you can take a leveraged position on Ethereum using MakerDAO. So similarly, on Tezos, we have platforms like Colibri and Uves, which and they offer their own stable coins. In Colibri, we have KUSD, and on Uves, we have UUSD. And besides stablecoin, Uves also issues UBTC, which is a Bitcoin. So I mean, it tracks the value of Bitcoin. So yeah, you can call it like a stable coin that is pegged to the external value of a Bitcoin. So basically, you deposit Tez into a Colibri oven or a Uves oven, and you get these stable coins. And then you use a DEX. DEX is a decentralized exchange. So we have something called Plenty DEX. So you can go ahead and swap your tokens for more Tez and then just repeat it to create a leveraged position. It's a very common pattern. If you, once again, since this is an intermediate level track, if you have some idea of DeFi, you will understand what's going on here. And this is very easy to build. You can just use the existing smart contracts already deployed on the blockchain by these projects. And you just need a UI to interact with the existing smart contracts. And in case you want to know what the smart contracts look like, then once again, I've listed out the smart contracts, the repositories of the smart contracts. And these are actually links. So once again, if you just click on the image, you will be taken to the repository, and then you can go ahead and read how the contracts are structured and how you can interact with them. So yeah, Colibri, Plenty, and Uves. So yeah, that's almost everything for this workshop. I explained how you can get started with Tezos and what you can build for this hackathon. So if you guys have any questions, let me know.
Guys, if you do have any questions, you can go ahead and ask them in the Q&A section or in the chat, and we'll try to answer them in the session. One common question that usually gets asked, Anshu, is that if we want to start from scratch, what are some of the best resources that we should use? And like all the resources that have been mentioned in the presentation, how can we find them?
So yeah, like I have linked up everything that I've spoken about. So all these repositories are linked up. But if you want to start from scratch, then once again go to this repository.
Okay.
It's a repository on my GitHub, and the second, third, and fourth video, these are the links to the, it's basically YouTube videos, and I've explained right from scratch how you can get started, and all the presentation slides and even the contracts which I've written in the workshops, they are available here. So yeah, it's very properly organized.
Okay. I'll ask Tanmay to share the link to the presentation in the chat section, so that anyone who wants to access this, they can do. Also, all of you who are watching the recording of this on YouTube, you will have the link to the presentation in the description box below. You can go and check it out there. With that, if you guys have any other questions, make sure that you do ask them right now. If you don't, you can obviously join the Lumos Metaverse Discord server, the link for which will also be shared in the chat section, and it will be in your description box below. So if you don't have your questions now, or if you want to ask them at a later stage, you can reach out to us on the server. We'll have someone from Tezos representing us in the server as well. So if you have questions specifically related to Tezos or the Tezos sponsor track, you can ask those questions there as well. The link has been quickly shared in the chat section, so you can go ahead and join the server. All
You
the
can also
major
share the link of the actual repository. I think that would be more
yes,
convenient.
yes, you can share it.
Yeah, maybe I can share it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the link to the actual github.com, the basic repository, has also been shared. So this is also something you can definitely refer to. Bye for now. Good night. Have a good evening.
Bye bye.